Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. This week is Scams Awareness Week. It's part of a national effort to improve awareness of the warning signs of scams, which are becoming more common, more advanced, and more deceptive. Shaq Johnson is the Head of Customer Protection at ANZ. He's also the Chair of the Australian Financial Crime Exchange. Shaq, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
Who's winning, the scammers or the consumers at the moment?
Well, at this point, definitely the scammers. As you pointed out, Sean, they are definitely sophisticated. There are organised crime syndicates that are behind these scams. So although we're seeing some good reduction in scam losses this year, there are a lot of consumers that are being scammed, a lot of money that is being lost, not to mention the emotional impact that scams has on consumers. So I think the scammers are winning at this point, but we are seeing some signs of, recovery, and we are cautiously optimistic, but there's a lot more to do.
Okay, so it's Scams Awareness Week. What are the most typical scams that bank customers are seeing at the moment?
There are plenty of scam types, unfortunately, and they continue to evolve, but I'll just cover on the most, concerning scam types that we're seeing at the moment. And I'll start with the impersonation scam. So those criminals impersonate banks, Australian Taxation Office, telcos, and other organisations. And if I can maybe focus on how they personate banks, because that's probably the most sophisticated that we've seen in recent months and years. But the scam essentially involves the victim receiving a text message claiming to be from the bank, and they often pretend or claim that there are some suspicious activities on the customer's account, and they encourage the victim to call a number. And then when the victim calls that number, they speak to somebody claiming to be from the bank security department. And then in that conversation, again, they use fear tactics to say your account is compromised, your money is unsafe, and we need you to move your money to another account. And that account has been opened by the scammers. And once the victim moves the money, the scammers will be waiting on the other end for the funds to land, and then the funds will move to different either financial institutions, or commonly we see funds go to crypto, and once they hit the crypto wallet, they sort of disappear on a blockchain.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the most concerning ones that we see. Business email compromise, or also referred to as invoice redirection scam, is becoming increasingly common, and this can have a quite a devastating impact on consumers and small businesses. And what that scam involves is the victim receiving an invoice either from a builder or from a conveyancer or from a known supplier. And again, there's an element of impersonation there. And once the email is received, there is often an invoice with a payment instruction, and those payments then go to the scammers. Unfortunately, we've seen consumers that are building a house, or they're just settling on their property, or they're either a residential or commercial property. The scammers know, because they have compromised an email account, they have intercepted communication between the customer and the conveyancer or the lawyer or the real estate, and they know there is a payment that is about to be made. And then they will send a fraudulent invoice instructing the victims to pay the money to a different account, and that account is controlled by the scammers.
Now, I'll go into what ANZ's doing about preventing scams in a moment, but before we get there, when you're a customer, and I would get at least a phone call a day, often more, explaining to me that something's been compromised, and you hang up, or it may not. Sometimes it's a recorded message, sometimes it's not a recorded message, it's an individual. What should you do? Like, if you have when you receive a phone call like that, what's the first thing to do?
I think first thing we encourage customers to do is pause.
Yeah.
As I mentioned previously, scammers use fear and urgency to make consumers do certain things, like your account is compromised, and if you don't move your money, you're going to lose your money. One thing I'd say, that if the money is in your account and there is unauthorized access to your money, the bank will typically, if you haven't been involved, you haven't contributed to the loss, the bank will compensate you for that loss. So the premise of the money is unsafe, you need to move it, and the bank is asking you to move. So pay attention to what you've been asked to do. Any communication, any form of communication, whether it's through a text message, a phone call, or an email, or a social media platform that is asking you to act with urgency, you need to be extremely suspicious. And one of the things that we often ask our customers to do is, if it's a communication claiming to be from your bank, pick up the phone and speak or call your bank on a number that is published on their profile on their website,
Yeah.
or on the back of the card, and speak to your bank, and you can ask them these questions. But again, the bank will never ask you to move your money out of your account. If we have concerns, then we will call you directly. We will not ask you for your personal details. We will not ask you to move your money out of your account. Your money is safe where it is, and we have measures in place to protect your profile or your account if we have suspicion that your account is compromised.
Stay with me, Shaq. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Shaq Johnson, Head of Customer Protection at ANZ. So there's a really important nuance in what you've just been talking about. Mostly customers will get their money back if they haven't acted, is kind of how you put it. Whereas if someone rings you and you make a move and you move your money because you've been scammed, then presumably you're less likely, because you've actually taken the action yourself, you're less able to get the money back, be that through the bank or through some other third party, versus if you do nothing, then you're more likely to get the money back. Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
That's absolutely right. You're spot on, Sean. If your account is compromised or has been hacked, or your credentials, your credit card details, or your internet banking has been compromised by an unknown third party, haven't contributed to it, your money has moved, then most banks in Australia have a money back or fraud money back guarantee.
Yeah.
And if you've contributed to or if you've made the payment yourself, it's a lot harder for the bank to detect those payments. Yes, we've invested heavily to detect and prevent scams, but if you're making the payment yourself, it's a lot harder for the bank to detect that because it's coming from your known device, your trusted IP address. But the other thing that I would say is, once you've made the payment, it's incredibly difficult to recover. Yeah. So the success of recovery is really low, especially if it goes to some of those non-traditional accounts like crypto exchanges and some other money remittance companies.
Okay, so ANZ is investing a lot in preventing scams. Take me through some of the measures, like the scam scoring model.
Sure. I'll probably start with education. It's probably one of the things that we focused heavily on is raising awareness. So we've introduced a lot of content on our anz.com around emerging scam types and some of the common red flags for our customers to look out for. We also introduced personalized warning messages in our digital channels. When customers are performing a particular activity or transaction, then they are introduced with a particular warning message relevant to what we think this customer is doing. We do believe that prevention is better than a cure, and being a scam awareness week, we do put a lot of emphasis on raising awareness, sharing some of the common scam types and some of the red flags that they present, and for customers to be on the lookout. So we invested heavily in raising awareness amongst our customers. The second thing, we've implemented biometrics capability across all of our digital channels, from the moment somebody opens an account to the moment they transact. So this helps us identify any unusual activity on our digital channels. How customers interact with our digital channels is something that we look at to help us identify any anomalies or any suspicious activity. You mentioned the scam detection model that we've introduced recently. You would have seen or heard about our Falcon platform. So our Falcon platform is essentially our risk engine. It receives more than 8 million payments per day and more than 7 million non-payment or non-monetary data signals from different sources, including our digital channels, including external sources. We also receive data from the Australian Financial Crime Exchange into our digital platform, into our Falcon platform. And what that helps us to do is to understand or make sense of the activity that is being performed, whether it's a payment through a digital channel or whether a payment on a card. And all of those data signals help us detect and prevent fraud and scams with much better precision than we used to in the past.
Okay, just finally, banking is an incredibly competitive industry in Australia. We've got 4 majors going at it hammer and tong. However, when it comes to trying to work on scams, the banks actually do cooperate quite a bit, don't they?
We absolutely do. And we always say that there's no competitive advantage when it comes to fighting fraud, scams, and financial crime. We're all in it together. We have a common enemy. We all want to win, but we don't want the others to lose, because if the others lose, everyone loses. So we absolutely do collaborate. We compare best practices. We talk about trends that we're seeing. We talk about successes. We talk about what's working and what's not working. But most importantly, as you pointed out, with regards to the AFCX, the Australian Financial Crime Exchange, we do exchange a lot of data. So all of the member banks consume and upload a huge amount of data on a daily basis to help banks within that ecosystem detect and prevent scams and fraud.
Fantastic. Shaq, thank you very much for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
That was Shaq Johnson, Head of Customer Protection at ANZ. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.